is this idea of can we measure whether something's making a profit or a loss? And we had a conversation that I really want to get recorded on film about this, because most organisations think they know whether a product is profitable or not. Well, I read somewhere that the Mini never made a profit. It was made for, I don't know, years, 30 years or something. Yeah. They never made a profit on the Mini. Obviously now it's BMW. Perhaps it's profitable, I don't know. But when it was the British Leyland Mini.
So how do they know that, by the way? So let's explore that.
Well,
take an example. So how do you know?
Well, I think it was so bad that they knew that.
No. Well, I would accept that if the selling price of the Mini is less than the purchase cost of the components that went into it, then I agree with you.
Yeah. No, maybe it was that. I don't know the detail. But what I know that companies do is they look at all their products that they make, and they look at the raw materials and the hours of direct labour. So that's relatively easy. So you know that. But then you have to apportion all the other costs.
Do you know that? I don't think I don't think that's true.
You may not even know that. And I know in the past you've said a component sits in the stores, and that has a cost because it's been counted lots of times. But that cost would be collected by adding up the labour cost of the store's people, and the heating and the lighting and the insurance and the rent. And so we've got all these other costs, haven't we? We've got costs of management and marketing and me going in to be a trainer. We've got all these costs. So what I suggest to companies that they do, you're going to love this, is try apportioning those costs across all their products. Mm-hmm. So you might say, well, this particular product takes quite a lot of management, so I'm going to put a bit more of the management cost on that one, a bit less on that. It's a bit of a guess. Mm-hmm. Put those costs across and see if those products are still profitable.
So based on a guess...
Although I'll just finish this first, because it's going to get worse. But when you've apportioned all those costs, actually guess how many hours you think. When you add up all the costs, you find it's not equal to the total sum of your costs. You find that your costs are higher than that. And you think, we've got to apportion some more than we thought. You know, we've put 3 hours of purchasing time on there, but actually the total purchasing department hasn't been paid for. So it must be 6. So you go through again and you apportion all of the costs till you get the right total, because the only thing we know for sure is the total. So when you've apportioned the total across all of your product lines, or your customers, you could do it by customer, or you could do it by product. Interesting to do both. When you've apportioned everything, you then find that most of your products or half of them are loss-making. And we have the 80-20, so 20% of them are bringing in 80% of the profit. The other 80% are bringing in very little profit. And so that 80%, some of them are profitable, but quite a lot of them are break-even or loss-making. And that's a real shocker to companies that do that.
No, so just imagine that. Let's take the loss-making product, and let's say we're not going to do it. We're not going to do that product.
Ignore the milk. Yeah. Let's focus on the cream.
Let's just focus on the cream, okay? And the cream loses us money. We're not going to do cream anymore. So the customer comes up and says, I notice you're not doing cream anymore. I've just cancelled my milk order because I want milk and cream. And Johnny down the road says it's cream and milk, so it's really one.
Yeah.
So then you say, I didn't really want the cream because I just want the milk. Yeah, that's not possible. So how do you put that sort of scenario, that mixed scenario, how does it build into your costs? And is it even helpful then, working out what your costs are when your customer definitely needs both of these elements, milk and cream? So most of the reasons, I think, Chris, and I'm interrupting here, are because of the allocation of bureaucratic functions to a particular product, because it's got that product has got to contribute to
but you've got to
the
allocate
overall
it
fixed cost.
I mean, if we're sticking to the bureaucratic model, if we're not going to do fractal for a moment, if we're going to have a top-down command and control bureaucratic model with departments, then surely we have to allocate the cost somehow to work out what's profitable and what isn't.
Yeah, but what happens if the whole thing is unprofitable then?
Well, then we're in real trouble, aren't we?
Now, look, you're going through this exercise that is so familiar with me, because that's what I did in the early days when we came to our impasse and we couldn't move forward. So I went through all the data we had, all the records we had, and all the options we seemed to have in front of us in terms of how we could reorganise them.
What percentage profit were you making, by the way, net profit at that point? Because most companies make about, let's say, 5%,
No, we're
which
making
probably means that some products are making 20% and some are loss-making. I mean, that seems to me what you've got in most companies. I agree, some companies are loss-making. In fact, we need to come back to that in a minute. But a company that's making a small profit is probably a mixture of profitable and loss-making products and profitable and loss-making customers.
Fantastic, and so are unprofitable companies. Because when you look at unprofitable companies, there's a range of their products that make money, and there's a range that don't make money. Okay, so you say, "I'll tell you what, we'll cut the range that don't make money, and then we'll make money."
That's like logical, isn't it?
It's totally logical,
but it doesn't. It's not practical.
It's not.
So tell us what happened when you tried to analyse yours.
So I started analysing all the ways you talked about. And what got in my way were my assumptions. So we didn't have some sort of Henry Ford type production line or automated production line, which meant I could compare one product with another product. Just the amount of time a product spent on the shelf between jobs, waiting for goods and materials to come in, the ingredients, had an impact upon its profitability.
Only a small impact, though.
You'd imagine it was only small, but of course, in lean manufacturing, you learn that the activity times in manufacturing look like the black stripes in a barcode, and all the rest of the time. But that time, all the rest of the time, is effectively bureaucratic and administrative time as well.
But you're paying rates, you're paying rent,
of course.
You're paying for all the space.
The HR department
you're
is sitting there.
You're paying for the stores to be kept. You're paying for the storeman.
So imagine a barcode which is just one giant black stripe because you've squeezed them up until all the white stripes have disappeared.
Yeah, you've saved a lot.
And you've doubled productivity probably.
Triple, quadruple. Now,
there is another problem as well, that I started looking at a job we were familiar with that repeated at different times. So you casually use the phrase, well, 20% of these products we make a big profit on, and 80% we don't make much money on. And I say, yeah, fantastic, but what if the same product manufactured at different times swaps group?
Which is true.
Okay, for some reason, at some point, your productivity is lower during this month because of other things you had going on at the same time.
Yeah.
And that product went out at a loss.
No, so let's explain that to you.
I can imagine you having a problem one time, or with one batch, where a different person scraps a load of it, or the material.
No.
But you're not talking about that.
Yeah, and I am talking about that. Plus all the myriad of other things that can make you stumble in the nice, smooth, imaginary world you have of production.
So I'll give you a real example. So you've got a machine here, and a lot of your product pass through this machine, okay, and that's the normal route. You have a machine breakdown, okay, and the products then have to be rerouted round the machine to a more expensive machine, okay, so because it uses more electricity or slower, whatever the reason is, or it requires 5 people rather than this from 1 person. So now all the costs of that rerouted machine have to be attributed to the product you're making. Clearly, yeah. So that product now becomes a loss maker. Now, before it was a profit maker.
And this is assuming you've only got one machine like this, but what if your factory is full of machines?
And it's not its fault at all. It's just,
That's right. But if you're going to do a proper job of costing, then you have to recover the cost of this old machine with the 5 people and the slower, etc.
And the only purpose of doing this costing is the decisions we're going to make based on it. And the decisions we make are going to now be massively faulty. Because we're going to be thinking, well, that was a loss-making job, so we should get rid of that. Yeah. And maybe it was just unlucky that time because the machine broke down.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And what if you remeasured it a month later?
I don't like this.
Does it? Okay.